Ashley,
Yes.
let's begin. And it was at the age of 12 or 13 that you had this near-death experience where you left your body. Could you tell
Yes.
us what happened?
Yes. I had been working I was in junior high school, and I come from a very small town in Idaho, and we were raising money to go on a trip to Washington, D.C. And in order to raise the money to go on this trip, they had a Halloween kind of carnival
Right,
slash haunted house at an old school. And it was a former high school. And actually, my dad went there years before.
wow, yeah,
And so it was just abandoned high school. I mean, it's something that you kind of picture kind of spooky and scary. So it was
yeah,
a perfect spot for this type of thing.
right,
And I was only, I think, in eighth grade, and the older kids were, having some different parts within the haunted house,
right,
and they had set me up to be in the haunted house, and I mean, it sounds crazy, but they put me in like a separate room by
right,
myself, and there's a sheet that's hanging on the wall to
right,
separate a bigger room. It was like in the wrestling room,
right.
old wrestling room,
Okay,
and they had a sheet that separated it. And I was on one side, and then they had a strobe light, and they were on the other side, like in monster masks and
right,
things like that.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, and so I was on the other side, and they had set me up on a stool, and they had a rope hanging over an old pipe
right,
on top, and I was supposed to be the fake, like your hanging
yeah,
person,
okay, yeah,
haunted house. And they had put the noose around my neck, but really low, way down, and then they have another rope that's kind of hanging from it that
yeah,
they tie around a belt loop,
yeah,
and then you put a coat on over it,
yeah,
and then it just looks like it,
like in
and
the
so they had me
movies.
practice.
Yeah,
Yeah, so they had me practice jump off this stool, and of course the lights are on. They had stopped everything. It was the people who were doing it before were the older kids,
right,
high schoolers like junior seniors, and they decided to go to a party. And it was towards the end of the haunted house. It was probably around 11 at night, and they were only had a couple more people coming through, and so they thought, oh, let's just have Ashley kind of do the last little bit with this. So they put me on, and of course, I jumped off and was able to see the stool and get back on it.
yeah,
And um, then they said, okay, we're ready to start. And they turned out the lights, and I'm in this room in the dark by myself. And I can see them in the other room with the strobe lights on through the slit in the sheet.
right,
But other than that, I was kind of there just waiting for my part that I
okay,
had to play in this thing. And then I remember them saying and yelling, like last run through, last people. And I thought, oh, I just want to make this like really good, like a really like look real. And when I used to jump, like when I was jumping, the rope was clear down here. But even though they would only see me for a short amount of time, because people would come through with a flashlight and flash it up on me, and that would be it. And then
right,
they would go to the next room. And so I remember hearing last run through, and I thought, I'm going to make it really good. So I tightened the rope like up on
okay,
my neck, up
yeah,
higher. And that was a bad idea because I didn't think and account for when you jump, it raises up,
oh, blimey,
and so I didn't account for that. And so I had it like right up underneath my neck when I jumped. And I remember jumping, and I remember jumping so hard that I remember swinging against an adjoining wall, like hitting the wall
right,
when I jumped because I jumped so hard. And I remember it coming like almost, I mean, like right up underneath my neck, completely underneath my neck. And uh, the stool, I was looking for it, like frantically trying to find it with my feet.
right,
And I remember hearing it tip over.
oh dear,
And I remember that sound because it was like a wood stool. I
oh,
remember hearing it
oh
tip
God,
over.
yeah,
And I don't talk about that part of my experience very much, but because of just how crazy it
Yeah.
is. But it was a crazy time, yeah, moment. I remember the franticness of it. So
Wow. And in that moment, could you feel that your life was fading away, or was the transition so quick that it really never bothered you in the end?
it went. I remember hitting the wall. I remember grasping at my throat because it was completely up on my
Right.
throat. And my pants had gone up. Like the whole thing had just shifted up.
Right.
And so I couldn't do it. And I remember hearing the stool fall. And I remember trying to pull this, but it was like a split second of trying to pull this.
Right.
And the next thing I know, I could see myself looking down at myself. Like
Okay.
I remember being outside of myself thinking, this is really weird. Like I can see myself,
Right.
and I remember turning, and the wall that had the slit, like my spirit turning. So it wasn't me turning, but like my spirit turning. It
Right.
was crazy. And I saw the split in the sheets where the strobe lights were.
Yeah.
And my spirit thought, oh, that's like a really pretty light.
Right.
And the next thing I knew, the strobe light became one ball of light. And it became like a whole bunch of little light bulbs put together into one glowing light that
Wow.
was like in front of me. And it was so like, I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like this is just amazing. I can't believe like how beautiful this is. I was trying to like piece together. I didn't even think about my body.
That was
Like that wasn't even a thought.
that was going to be my next question. Did you even think about your body at this point?
I didn't even think about my body. I didn't even register that I was over there. All I could do was just look at this light. Like I became more of myself. And I instantly felt like I was um, being drawn to this light. And like, you hear
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
say, go towards the light, I mean, that obviously comes from something, and it was real. Like, I mean, I'm just this little girl, and wasn't scared. I didn't feel apprehensive. It was just going towards this whole wall. Like the room just became the light.
Right.
And I remember like floating towards it or going to, I don't know how you even explain it. It wasn't like I don't know, you were just like drawn to it. And I remember going into the light and it being enveloped, like it becoming me. The light became me and I became the light.
Wow.
And I remember the next thing, and I don't know how I remember so much. I mean, I remember so many details that, at the time of my accident, of course, we didn't have internet.
No.
We didn't have, any type of connection to know of what this is or anything like that. But I remember so much. And I remember going to the light, and the moment I went on the other side of this light, there was this space, and it was a space of white light. Everything was
Brilliant.
just glowing light. And I remember like being there. The next thing I know, I was there, and all of a sudden, all of these spirits, I don't know what to call it, but family members, loved ones, people that I didn't know here on earth, but I knew in heaven.
And you
That
you recognized them?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I recognized them from heaven. And even my grandfather was there. My dad lost his brother in a car accident
Right.
years before I was born. He was there.
And you recognized him?
I recognized him and knew him instantly on who he was. And I wasn't seeing people. Like I was seeing like maybe the shape or the out shape of light that was kind of like in the shape of a body-ish.
Yeah.
But it was as though I recognized their soul.
Wow.
And I knew their soul instantly. And instead of like them coming up and they were surrounding me, but they became me and I became them. It was like we became this one light energy all at one time. It was like that's how they welcomed me. was to give me like their love. It was profound. Yeah.
Wow. And just to clear one thing up, because not everyone does see the tunnel of light to take them to this way.
Yeah.
You didn't have the tunnel experience, did you?
I didn't have a tunnel. It was a wall of light.
Yeah.
And it went from a wall of light to becoming the light to coming out on the other side of the light is what I felt.
And what happened on the other side of the light? Because I mean, I know I've read your story. It's amazing. So,
it's beyond, like, I mean, for me, I still, after so many years, I'm 41. So after so many years, I'm still coming to terms with what had happened. But everything I'm going to tell you is exactly what the truth of what happened. So I was there, and the next thing I knew, and I remember them telling me, and they didn't talk like with talking mouths or anything like that. They talked with like, I don't know, I was able to understand them just by them thinking, what they were thinking.
Okay.
And I remember them saying, "Oh, you're here early." Like that, oh my goodness, what are you doing here? Like, I remember feeling this like surprise and shock that I was here as early as I was here, from them. Like they knew something, and I was like, oh, like, where is here? But it's weird because you didn't even question where is here. It was almost as though you knew, oh, I am here. Like, this is home. This is where I'm supposed to be. There was never like this question of, oh my goodness, I died. Where am I? Am I in heaven? That doesn't even come through for me, it didn't. No. It didn't come, as a question.
It just there was nothing to question. You just felt this presence of being in the right place,
where I was supposed to be.
Yeah,
of where my home is.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And the next thing I knew, I was surrounded by what I can only explain were angels. They weren't necessarily with big wings and what you expect, but I knew that they had a higher energy than my family members. Like they were almost glowing more than my loved ones around me, and they were bigger. Like it was a bigger energy shape. Right. And I had two of them, but I had one in particular that I knew was, quote unquote, my spirit guide. I don't know how to explain it, but like somebody who knows me and who was like assigned to me in a way, like that was a part of me.
Right.
And I don't know, like it, and I remember that being a huge, like, calming awakening. Like I remember them coming up to me and it being like, there you are, like feeling, oh, there you are. Like it's almost like a child seeing their mom. Okay. And it was like this feeling of I'm finally with like that radiant of love. And I didn't feel that it was God. I felt like it was like your spirit guide or archangel, they call it, or whatever. But at the time I didn't know what that was, or of any of that. And they said, you have to come with us. It was the two of them, but one in particular. Right. I said, okay. And I remember, I don't know if I was floating or how I got there, because I don't think I was walking, but I just remember the next thing I knew, I was standing in front of these large steps, and the steps went up really, really high to this building that looked like Greece, that had the columns, like the Greek columns that you see. Yeah. And they had these huge columns. And I remember standing here and saying, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And it had like almost an iridescent shine on the outside of it. Okay. Almost like you crushed up abalone shells.
Right.
And it was made out of like crushed up abalone shells. And I remember the next thing I knew, I don't remember necessarily walking up the stairs, but I remember being in this great room. And inside this room were, the best I could describe it were tables. And they were like circular tables, and there were as many as the eye could see, like as far as I can consciously remember. And there were souls standing next to their individual tables, with their spirit guides next to them.
Right.
And they had me go up to my table, and I was like, what is this? And they're like, well, you um, need to learn from your earthly experience, your experience on earth. And I said, well, what do you mean, like learn? And they said, well, just look into, or I don't remember if I touched it because I don't remember having hands, but I remember like about to look into it. And it was a table, and in the middle of the table was a dome. And it was almost like the dome became a hologram in a way, to where you could look into this dome hologram, or you can become it. And I remember looking at it, people around me, and there were people around me that some were laughing. I could feel their energy laughing. I could feel them crying. I could feel them screaming. I could feel like and I wasn't seeing it, but I could feel it when I wanted to look at them, like when I wanted to acknowledge them. And I remember asking them, like, why are they so sad, or what's going on? And they said, no, this is part of the process. Like, they let me know that this is part of your healing, and this is what they have to do in order to heal and to become one with the energy around us. And I remember looking into the dome hologram thing, or becoming part of it. I don't know how I became, but anyway, I remember seeing it, and I was able to live out my short life because I was only 12, but I was able to feel everything I've ever felt in my entire life. I was able to witness everything I had experienced from not only my perspective, but other people's perspective. Like, I could become my dad. I could become somebody who was watching on the side. Anyone who had a part of an experience, I could become them, or I could witness it from an outside perspective. And I become them, and I feel them. I feel what they felt. I learned about, like, it wasn't just about me, and that life wasn't just about me. It was about the experience and your effect on other people, and that we all have a purpose and a plan that we help within that dynamic of our life, and and time doesn't exist there. I think I was there for, even in my life review, I would think I was there for a couple weeks, like, at least,
really?
Experiencing, yes. And I was able to experience it, and it was just, from small country girl in a small town, I hadn't had this big life experience yet, and yet I still felt like there was so much to learn just from my life experience here.
And at any point in this, did you ever feel, I need to be getting back to mum and dad, or I need to be just...
At this moment, no. At this moment, it was all about this life review. It was all about this experience. And I remember coming, like, after I had taken my time, and I can choose however long I wanted to. I can choose whatever, like, point of view, an advantage point I wanted to look at my life. I could feel it from anybody's point of view, and it wasn't, God doesn't judge us. We don't necessarily judge ourselves. We do it purposely so that we can learn from our experience, and we can become a higher self. And it's all about learning and trying our best to become closer to God, and not necessarily closer to God, but more one with Him by our experiences of coming to Earth. I don't know how to explain it, but I never felt like it was for a judgment. It was just for learning, and experiencing the life that you had.
And sorry, no, please continue. I just wanted to say, at the age of 12 or 13, you can probably feel more beautiful experiences than, let's say, the misdemeanors we've caused other people.
Yes.
And in someone else I spoke to, they said their experience, they felt the love tenfold or 100-fold. And I presume they would feel the pain also, that amount. Was that the same experience for you?
Yes. I felt everything, exponentially. Like, it was just felt everything. And you also learned, when you became in the experience with someone else, you also understood why they acted the way they did. So it wasn't necessarily, then you became, okay, this is why somebody acts this way, or this is, you knew their backstory. You became them in a way, like their spirit. So you understood, it became clear why you had that experience with that person. But you also knew and realized that the little things matter too. Like being kind to somebody, like being kind to somebody just randomly can ultimately have an effect that changes the world or generations. And I know, you hear the butterfly effect, or everyone has an effect on everybody else, but it's true. We are all one. We are all come from the same place. And when you're in heaven, you all become one, and you all, like, it's like this, this knowing of each other, that you didn't know before.
Sure.
And I remember coming out of it, and I remember them, and it was like a release. It was almost like this feeling, like this heaviness was there a little bit.
Yeah.
And then afterwards it was like it was gone. Like it's almost like you just, okay, I learned from that, and it was exhausting because I remember this feeling of like, heaviness, but then afterwards just like a release, and I remember them taking me into another room or another place, and there were a whole bunch of light spirits that had just gone through the experience, and they were like in a horizontal position, and they had this huge white light around them, like a bubble of white light. And I remember asking, well, what is going on with them? And they said, well, those are the spirits that had a really hard time on Earth, and we essentially put their spirit into like a peaceful sleep or a calmness, a moment of meditation, or whatever you want to call it. They didn't explain it like that, but it's like I knew that that's what it was. Like gave me the knowledge that that's what it was. And so they could rest and recover forever as long as they needed to from that.
And so what happened after your review? Was it a case of, well, okay, it's time to go back now? And was it a case of, I don't want to go back?
This was, from that, they took me to another building that had these columns. Again, it was but it was a completely separate building. And I walked in, and I remember seeing scrolls and books all along the walls as far as you can see. It was like, 50 feet high and all along the walls. And in the middle was like this long table, like a dining room table. And again, I don't know exactly if this is really like, or they're just letting me see it so I can comprehend. Does that make sense?
Sure,
so I don't know, what they, why I saw it the way I did. But I remember them taking me in, and they had a table, and they said, these books are your life and all the people in the world's lives on these books. And they told me that there is reincarnation, like we come back, and that we come back multiple, if not hundreds of times. And each time is to learn and then take those experiences. And then we have our life review and learn from it. And that everything is our choice, that they don't force us to come back. It's our choice to come back. And it's free will, and that we have the free will that we do, but we all have a purpose. We're all interlinked, everybody, and when we come back, there's a reason that we come back, forever long that we come back, and it might be to just affect someone for a short amount of time, or we might have a full, long life and affect lots of people, but our life has a purpose,
would you say that where you were there were the Akashic records, what we come to know as the Akashic records?
I don't know a lot about that.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Well, it's exactly how you described it. So I was just wondering if perhaps,
I'll have to look into it more.
Look that up. That you might find quite interesting. After this experience, then what happened?
Okay, so they showed me my life path, kind of like out on a scroll or a book. I just remember it being like a physical thing, like a thing I was looking at.
Okay.
And I remember um, they showed me visions of people that are important to me in my life, like my dad, and they showed some other people in my life, but they showed it as though it's a fast forward to I had passed away, and they were showing me the moment that they found out that I had died. And I remember becoming them and feeling it, but I also witnessed it and watched it, and like their feeling of like pain, excruciating loss, those
Sure,
things,
yeah.
and I felt it. And they said that I needed to come back, but I didn't want to come back.
Right.
And they said, your purpose, you have a big purpose in your life, and you need to go back. They told me that I was going to have children. They said that my ultimate reason for coming back was to share my story, and that to share with the world that God is love and that heaven exists, and that there is a place that we go when we die, and that my whole purpose for coming back was to give comfort to others and to share this. And I remember them showing me that and feeling that, and it was my choice to come back from that. They showed me this, but they said, this is what, you need to do to come back. And I don't remember seeing God or, Jesus or anything like that.
Sure.
But God was everything there. God was in everything and everyone. It wasn't a male or a female. It was an energy that is indescribable that was there, but it was as though we, were home. It was amazing. Yeah. And yeah. And then
Yeah. Continue, please. I interrupted.
Oh, you're fine. I remember them showing me things that heaven looked just like earth. So outside of the light and that kind of things, heaven is a mirror image of earth. It's almost a direct mirror image of earth. At least the heaven that I was at.
Right.
Was. And it looked, I haven't been everywhere at 12, but I remember it being like trees and flowers and all the things that you would not naturally see, but you could go anywhere you wanted to go just by thinking about it. Right. And you could go to, wherever it is you want to be, but it's almost as though it's before man kind of ruined it,
Right.
It's earth pre-man, and it's just, I don't know if they made it that way to give us comfort and kind of familiarity with like knowing, but you could just, be a part of that, experience. Right. With being on earth, but there, and it looked the same. It was beautiful.
Right. And so at some point you must have made this descent back to earth.
Yes. Yeah, I did.
What was the feeling there? Did you begin at any point to feel your body, or was it bang, I'm just back in my body?
Instantly back. Right. The next thing I knew, I was on the ground. And in the meantime, what had happened was they had closed up for the night. And they were closing up the high school. And I have an autistic friend who was a friend of mine, an acquaintance friend. Yeah. But the kids who were in the room with the slit, with the strobe light room, they had gone. And the teachers that were downstairs told my friend to go upstairs and turn out the strobe light. Right. But he was taking his time and going slower. I think if they had told the other teenage kids, they would have just run upstairs, turned off the light, and ran back downstairs. Right, yeah. But they told him, and so when he walked up the stairs, he walked up slow and was taking his time, and it was across the room to where they would unplug it. And as he was going there, he looked through the slit and he saw my hand, is what he said. Right. And so he went and instantly saw me and I'm sure that was horrific for him. And he, I don't know how, but somehow got me down, like
Yeah.
on the ground. Because when I came back, um, they had called, he had screamed for, I wasn't breathing, and they had screamed for the teachers to come upstairs. And they were administering CPR on me. And then I came to, I don't know how long, but I, had come to, and I just remember not knowing where I was, but I remember still feeling the love of being there. It was weird. It's like I almost brought it back with me.
Right.
And I remember when I finally was kind of conscious and back and things like that, like wanting to hug people and kiss people.
Right.
And like, it was the weirdest like expression of love that I still wanted to share. So,
Right.
but yeah. And then I went home. They didn't even like, I don't know why, but they didn't even take me to the hospital. Like it was such a
Strange.
small country town.
Right.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
I think they're like, she's back and fine.
Okay,
And let's just go. And it was the weirdest, like they had called my dad, and I was able to tell my dad, what had happened. And then I didn't tell him exactly what had happened with my experience because I was still kind of grappling with it.
Right.
But I remember the next day actually telling him.
Yeah.
And my dad before this wasn't religious. I didn't grow up in a religious home,
Right.
but it had an effect on him. Years down, like right after the experience, for I would say a good year, I suffered from depression, pretty severe depression. And I was because I just didn't feel like I was here. Like I felt like I was still there.
You didn't belong anymore.
I didn't belong here, and I knew, and I remembered everything. So I knew it was real. And for me, I remember even thinking, what's the purpose of going to school if we're going to die and go to this amazing place anyway? And I remember thinking that, like it took me a long time to like get back into the clubs and the groups I was taking a part of, like being with my friends, because I just felt so different, and like that there was a definite, difference. Before and after.
And the question of education there. So when you was over there in the spirit world, it was like, I guess, you could have known all the math and English when you was over there.
Right. I don't remember. I mean, I'm a teacher now.
Right.
And I definitely think there's obviously importance in education and stuff. But when I was there, I don't remember feeling that was something, I don't know if you necessarily take it with you, but I don't remember it being something that we were lacking.
Right,
I think it was almost like we go there and it answers everything for us.
Right,
It's almost like we become the same in different ways, but and I remember years later, my dad, because I hadn't mentioned anything and he still remembered it. And he looked up NDEs or somehow came across it. And he was like, Ashley, he's like, and he explained what an NDE was to me, because I really didn't know even what my experience was, fully. And he's like, people all over the world are having experiences exactly like you told me. And with like the life review, and even with like the table, and with like those, records, and then the reincarnation and all of that, like it, for him, that was like so amazing. I mean, he became a full believer, that there is a place we go after this, because he remembered back to this 12, 13-year-old girl sharing all of this that I would have had no idea of knowing.
Yeah. I mean, so how has this affected your life now? Without that experience, would you have been on a completely different trajectory, would you say?
I think that in my life, good question, I think with it changed so many aspects of myself. I'm more conscious of how I treat others.
Right.
I'm more conscious of how my life impacts even the littlest things. I can I know of my purpose, and that we all have a purpose, and we all have free will from this
Yeah.
God energy source, but we all have a purpose and a life kind of path for us, but we can choose different. But for me, the more and more of my life, for a while, I was a CNA for hospice, and I felt that my
Right.
reason for being here was to help people transfer over to the
Wow.
other side, and I did that for quite a long time. Um, and Okay, so when after I had this experience, I have been given a lot of gifts from this experience.
Right.
And I'm just learning that other people are given it too.
Uh-huh.
So I'm more willing to like open up to it. My
Yeah.
husband knows about it. My close family know
Yeah.
about it. My dad knows about it. But when I first came back, I had high sensitivity to light, especially to like fluorescent lights
Right.
and fluorescent lights on mirrors. So like the fluorescent lights over bathroom
Yeah. Yeah.
mirrors stuff. I would have to have them on a dimmer because it was so intense.
Sure.
Sounds were really intense, but I could feel other people and the vibrations of other people. And, for a long time, I had a big sensitivity to that. But the more and more as I'm getting older, I, it became more pronounced when I became a hospice CNA, and I was going to be a hospice nurse before I became a teacher. But that was overwhelming for me because the spirit I could feel before they transitioned over, I could feel and knew that they were going to be passing away,
Right.
even before they knew they were going to be passing away.
Right.
And I could feel that from them, and it became like almost too much for me. So
Right.
I ended
Yeah.
up going back to school and getting my master's and becoming a teacher, which I loved doing, but it was in part because that was a lot. But I definitely feel like I have a different viewpoint than some people, that haven't had the experiences. I don't know why they let me remember so
Yeah.
much. Oh,
Yeah.
and I didn't know that I remembered more than other people. Like I said, I'm new to all this.
Yeah.
I didn't know that a lot of people hadn't experienced it to that extent or gone that far, or that wasn't just kind of how it was for years.
Right.
I'm still kind of grappling with a lot of it. But.
Okay. One final question for you is, why do you feel now that the timing is right for you to talk about this? Because I'm pretty sure it's not by chance. There's a reason now why
Yeah.
you should
Yeah.
be talking about it. So have you discovered this reason?
It's interesting that you asked that. You're the very first interview that I've done on this. I did my video a couple weeks ago because I finally decided it's so important
Yeah.
that I don't care. I put it on my personal Facebook
Brilliant.
too,
Yeah.
because I just didn't care anymore of the stigma because I felt like it's so important right now. I just have this like overwhelming feeling that this is what I'm supposed to do and that I am supposed to share with the world right now, because I feel like so many people are needing that love and that comfort, because I think that they can feel, as I can feel, that we're in a transition.
Yeah.
There's something that's going to be happening.
Yeah.
Something big is on its way.
Yeah.
And there is something that is like opening for all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to be brave and come out and share it and not care what
Brilliant.
is
Yeah.
going to happen, because even if it helps
Yeah.
one person, that's the purpose that we're supposed to be here, to kind of fight this. I feel like there's this darkness, and I almost feel like the people like you who have had this experience were brought here for right now
Yeah.
to counteract this darkness
Yeah.
that's on Earth.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually, you sum that up with someone who speaks with a lot of experience, actually, because it is my experience that you're 100% correct with all the people that I've spoken to. They say exactly what you're saying. What has come to me is exactly the same. And we are on the cusp of a new golden age. And
Yeah.
yes, people such as yourself also, because if the one thing you do with your story is to elevate people from that fear energy, and
Yes.
and that is the key to success for all of this, for
Yes.
this new
Yeah.
period that we're going through, to remove the fear energy. So
For sure.
I guess I kind of answered your question as well.
No.
This is
Yeah.
why you're here, to be part of this ripple
Yeah.
effect, to make
Yes.
this change. So
Yeah.
yeah, more power to you
Yes.
for doing this.
No, thank you.
So
Thank you. I mean, it's not by chance that we're talking today. So,
no,
I felt that.
yeah.
So,
So Ashley, to wrap this up, is there anything you want to say to the people? Any final words you can offer them before we depart?
I just want you to know that it's all real. That, the experiences, it might be different. Other people might have, different aspects of things that are a little bit different, but
Sure.
from their NDEs, but that we are here for a reason, that we are all love and light and energy. We're all one, and that we all go back to that, that we're all special and unique and loved beyond measure. And that if you could take anything away, it's to just be more conscious of your effect on others and what you can do to bring joy and light and love to others.
Wow.
And that's the ultimate purpose of being here.
Brilliant.